Chapter 24. Tara. We didn't do any physio after that. I felt sick and dizzy, and things were blurry again. My arms and shoulders were sore. I'd been gripping the arms of my chair. I got rid of them all. Britt seemed to understand and said they'd push off and let me rest. He, Ryan, didn't argue. Ash went with Mel. Funny that. They'd only been gone a second when Ash came back in. Didn't mean to get heavy, sorry. But Ryan's had a tough time too, eh? He's had a... I just nodded. You okay? He asked. I mumbled something. Shit, I thought afterwards. I'm supposed to be going to the last Summer League netball game a week today. Hope I can last through a bit of excitement by then. Ryan. We just got out into the hall when Ash said, "Wait up," and went back into the nuclear blast zone. Mel suddenly said, "Hope she's okay for the netball," and smiled at me. You coming, Ryan? I had the sudden weird picture of Tara in her wheelchair trying to play. Straight after it, another picture came. Brittany, meanwhile, was firing up. He's not. She stopped as Ash came out, and we moved on down the hall. Then I heard myself speaking. You could try... The other stared at me till I'd finished. Mel gave me another smile that showed her dimples. Ash said, "Cool, mate." But Brittany was best. She just stood there with her mouth open. That made 3 times in the last half hour someone had shut her up. Brilliant. I drove home. John and Mel were going round to Peel's place for the evening, so it looked like another exciting Friday night at home by myself. Then, about 7:30, the phone rang. Vince. "Doing anything?" he asked. "Thought I'd drop by." I was too surprised to know what to say, so I said yeah. He came round 1/4 of an hour later with a couple of beers. We talked about nothing much for a bit. Then he asked, "How's Tara?" I looked at him for a moment, then I told him. Vince sat there looking awkward. "Sorry, mate," he mumbled when I'd finished. "I know I handled it bad, but the old man told me to keep out of it, eh? Said anything might happen and I'd better stay low." "No worries," I said, and half meant it. Suddenly I felt so pleased I had John and Mum. "Hey," Vince said then, "that Mel chick. I hear she's getting a bit bored with old Ash, wants some excitement. Reckon I could excite her?" I looked at him again. I let him rave on. When he was leaving, I asked what he was doing the next day, Saturday. Vince looked a bit edgy. "Might see ya," he said. I went, "Yeah, okay," and left it at that. I felt sad, I guess. Like I say, there'd been a time when we planned to do everything together. Now, maybe I should have just told him to get lost. But we go back a long way. Yeah, I've said that too. Attention now turned to the patient's return to school after the holidays. Her accident had meant a serious setback. Handwriting problems meant she might need to use a keyboard in all classes. This and short-term memory problems could affect the subjects she was able to take. However, there was no doubt that her strength and fine motor tuning was steadily improving. She was now able to use a knife and fork to cut up most of her food. Ryan. Taekwondo on Sunday. Good session. School on Monday. 81% for IT. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to make myself feel good, because Mrs. Gower rang on Sunday and asked if I could do a session with Tara on Monday afternoon. Mum took the call and came back smiling. She sounds like there's a 10-ton weight starting to lift from her shoulders. Yeah, and there was one just landed on mine. In the foyer of Watson House, I ran into Brooke. She nodded at me. You just do all you can help her. This isn't about making you feel better. Tara was on the side veranda of Watson House with lawns and flower beds around. Hi, I said. She said nothing, just wheeled her chair past me and headed towards the physio room. I felt my face go hot. Fine by me, I thought. And it was, in some ways. I didn't have to talk to her about anything. We want to work on Tara's balance, said Brooke. She showed me the exercises, Tara kneeling on the floor, lifting her arms one at a time, then her legs one at a time. I managed okay. That Tai Chi stuff from Zeman helped, focusing and taking it slowly. Tara was good. She stuck at it. She's heaps better every time I see her. I had to hold her hips again. Part of the time her leg was pressed against mine. She must have felt it. I certainly did. After a bit, her left arm started to shake. You want to stop? I asked. She snapped, I'll tell you when. That was our big conversation for the day. When she was in her wheelchair again, I asked, You want to go back to your room or the veranda? She shrugged. So I just walked out of the physio room without her. In the hall, I counted up to 5, went back in to where she sat staring at me, wheeled her out onto the veranda, and left her there. And I didn't feel bad about doing it. Tara. My body is so much better. I'm getting a bit of tone back into my muscles. I did a sort of fast walk along the veranda on Tuesday, holding the wall. A fast hobble anyway. I had to stop at the end and pant. I'm not so good at other things. When I read a book, I keep forgetting what happened a couple of chapters back. That's another thing I've missed out on. Britt and Mel came over. They lost on Saturday. The Rockets have fizzed to about halfway on the table. I'm definitely going to watch the final game this Friday. Brilliant. Is Ash coming? I asked Mel, oh so casually. She shrugged. So it was like that, eh? Poor Ash. I kept thinking how he came back into my room last Friday after he'd stuck up for Ryan, and how Ryan behaved then and Monday, walking out of the physio room and leaving me like that after what he's done. Guys need a bloody good kicking, like Britt would say. A rehabilitation program for the patient after she returns home must be planned. Contact must be made with her school so teachers understand the difficulties she will face. Ryan. I had my second defensive driving lesson on Wednesday. Smartass wasn't there. We looked at ways of checking the road for dangers before they happen. What do you do when the door of a parked car starts to open, when a kid is playing with a ball on the footpath? It's a different way of seeing, said the instructor. Yeah, that's happened to me in other ways too. School prize giving next week. I'm getting a couple of certificates. John said we'd get takeaways to celebrate. I want a McDee's, but John said there was this great fish and chip place he'd heard about. Since he was paying, I couldn't argue. He phoned the order through, told me how to get there, and I set off in the Subaru. It wasn't far from Lithgow Street, which is a name I'll never forget. I parked and went in, and there was Zeman looking at me across the counter. Hi, Lion, he said. You come in for John's order? I stared, swallowed, and thought, you crafty sod of a stepfather. Zeman chatted away about Tai Chi. I am really pleased you helped Tara with her recovering, he said. His wife smiled and said, good, good. When he handed me the order and I asked how much, Zeman shook his head. No, you already paid. I was driving home before I understood. Tara. He came over on Thursday afternoon too, and we did the same exercises. I managed better than last time, but he still had to help me. He's got nice hands, all right. Nice lying shits hands. He didn't say anything unless I did. Near the end, when we'd both been silent for about 5 minutes and Brooke was over the other side of the room, my mouth suddenly asked, Did I run out into the crossing? His hand went still on my arm. He said nothing for a second. Then, It doesn't matter. It does matter, I began. No. He spoke so loud, I got a shock. When I glanced at him, his face was fierce, almost. I should have been paying more attention. Another pause. I'm doing a defensive driving course. Okay, I went. I couldn't think of anything else to say. When he was leaving, he looked at me. Enjoy the netball. I felt surprised he'd remembered. Mum and Dad picked me up after tea on Friday. I was so excited I'd eaten hardly anything. Dad helped me into the car. Brooke had found a light wheelchair that folded into the boot. It was my first nighttime drive since the accident. The moment we stopped outside the stadium and yellow wheelchair space, there are a few perks, and I heard the thump of basketballs inside, I just ached to be out on the court. All the Rockets were waiting inside the door. Miss Gilchrist kissed me on the cheek, asked, "Where's your maths assignment, Tara?" and kissed me again. The other kids hugged me. A lot of people smiled and nodded as Dad wheeled me to a place in the front row, right by the halfway line. Best seats in the house. We watched the warm-ups. The Rockets were playing first against another middle-of-the-table team. The result wasn't going to matter much, but I was so looking forward to the game. The umpires came out and the teams took up their positions. There was a bit of a hush. Both umpires had turned and were gazing towards the sideline. What? Then Dad stood up. He gave me a huge grin and started wheeling my chair out onto the court. Clapping and cheering burst out all around the stadium. I sat with my mouth open while he pushed me into the middle. Britt handed me the ball. She looked like she was going to howl. "You throw off," she said. It felt awesome in my hands. For a second, I had this panic I wouldn't be able to do it properly. But Ryan's, exercises had helped, and I tossed a decent pass to Mel. She stood smiling and holding it, while Dad wheeled me off the court and the cheering and clapping went on. The game started, and after a moment, Mum leaned across. She had been howling, I could tell, but she smiled now and said, "Okay, love?" "Yeah." Okay, I was bloody brilliant. "Thanks," I went. "Cool idea." Mum and Dad looked at each other. "Actually, it was Ryan's idea," Mum said.